There are a couple of channels that you guys have been mentioning that I wanted to have a look at, so we're gonna do that now very quickly. So channel number one is this Celtic History Decoded. You've been telling me about it. I see it's mostly focused on DNA. In fact, this guy really loves DNA, doesn't he? So that's one of the channels I wanted to check out with you. The thumbnails are very colorful. Man, look at that. Beautiful thumbnails. The home of unique videos on history, ancient ancestry, and DNA. From exploring the fascinating genetic history of various countries to the origins and reasons for different eye colors, Celtic History Decoded creates unique and entertaining videos on history with a particular focus on genetic history and ancestry. Very nice. My name is Stephen Macmillan. That's a Scot. And I live in Scotland. I have a first-class honours degree in politics and international relationship from the University of... And you can become members, United Kingdom. Okay, well, let's pick one. Gonna got me curious. Let me have a look at this one then. See why. Swedish DNA and the evolution of blonde hair. Let's go.
Look at this table. These are the countries with the most people with natural blonde hair in the world. As you can see, Sweden is number one, with over 70% of Swedes having this hair colour.
Holy moly. Yeah, I love his accent. Sweden, 78% of blondism? Wow.
Yet globally, only around 2% of people are natural blondes. So why do so many Swedes have blonde hair? Has this always been the case? And what other factors have been involved in the evolution of blonde hair in Sweden and more broadly? Now, blonde hair in Europeans is primarily caused by genetic mutations that reduce the amount of eumelanin. And a key driver of this change comes from a mutated allele, RS128-21256, of the KITLG gene. As an interesting side note, some Melanesian populations also have natural blonde hair. But this is caused by a completely different genetic mutation than the one found in Europeans and many others around the world.
Man, this guy knows his stuff. Findings suggest golden locks evolved twice in human history, so these are completely separate. Fascinating.
It's fascinating though, how the same trait can evolve independently in different parts of the world. But did this Eurasian blonde hair genetic mutation originate in Sweden? Well, ancient DNA shows that the oldest fossil known to carry this mutated allele.
I thought it was somewhere in Spain, actually. Before we continue, I actually find it interesting, the fact that it's red hair. Do you know that actually when it comes to ancient stereotypes, these are stereotypes, but then again, they usually are based on the truth that then gets a little exaggerated in the sources. When you read ancient Roman writers, whether it be Julius Caesar himself, Julius Caesar, or Pomponius Mela, they describe blondism as a characteristic of Germanic and Celtic tribes when it comes to continental Celts. They tell us, yeah, they're all blonde. Probably they weren't all blonde, but clearly we can imagine that there must have been a very high percentage of blondism. However, when they talk about the Picts and the Scots specifically, but they didn't have it in mass, they would have black or brown hair. So they would order it. They would pay for it. It wasn't stolen. They would pay for real blonde wigs that were taken from the Celts and Germanic populations, meaning that there were Germanic women that would shave their head, cut it, sell it to the Romans, and then the Roman women, there was a business. And in fact, interestingly enough, it is a myth when they say that blonde wigs are associated with prostitutes in Rome. That's not true. In fact, it was the upper class that could afford it.
Well, ancient DNA shows that the oldest fossil known to carry this mutated allele in the KITLG gene is a 17,000-year-old ancient North Eurasian specimen from Avantova Gora in southern Siberia. So the origin of blonde hair was most likely in Siberia or around this area, not in Sweden. But how did this trait first arrive in Scandinavia then? And who was the first person with blonde hair in ancient Sweden? Now, we know that the earliest populations in this region after the Ice Age were Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, often called Scandinavian hunter-gatherers. And this group was created from the mixing of Western hunter-gatherers moving north and Eastern. Now, we know that Western hunter-gatherers largely had dark brown hair and blue eyes, with the genes for blonde hair largely absent from them. It was arrivals from the east that changed things, however, in the form of Eastern hunter-gatherers. This is because ancient North Eurasians contributed genes to them before they moved west towards Europe.
Okay, so let me read that one. Before they moved west towards Europe, let me read this one again.
North Eurasians
Ancient North Eurasians contributed genes to them. Interesting. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much.
Contributed genes to them before they moved west towards Europe. So how old is this blonde-haired gene in ancient Sweden then? Well, it may be way older than we initially thought.
Really?
A really interesting paper was published in Nature in 2018.
Let me see, the genomic history of southeastern Europe. I hope, yeah, I'm sure he put the link. I'll have a look at this one.
It analysed data from over 200 ancient individuals from southeastern Europe who lived between 12,000 and 500 BC. And it compared them against a wider reference panel from across Eurasia.
Okay.
They found that this blonde hair allele was present in 3 hunter-gatherers.
Okay.
As this map shows, the first hunter-gatherer with this allele was from Samara in ancient Russia.
Ancient Russia. Ancient Russia. Man, imagine the distance. I can see, though, how this would spread. He's very scientific, right? He's explaining all the genomic and ancestry and DNA and alleles and all this thing. I get it. Fantastic. I'm not, so I'm going to say the obvious. Whoever it was that had the genetic mutation, the reason why it became popular is because men liked it. They're like, oh, that looks pretty. And then you reproduce. I think it's that. I mean, I know it's very basic as an approach to life and the spreading of a certain genetic characteristic, but I really think it's like that.
The second was from Motala in Sweden, and the third was from Ukraine.
Ukraine, okay.
And we know that this Motala hunter-gatherer was a woman who lived more than 7,500 years ago.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that the very first, most ancient case that we know of this genetic mutation for blondism was a woman. But then again, I can already imagine, like, the guys in the tribe, man, she's pretty, she's got golden hair. Obviously, that's how it went.
Dated between around 5,900 and 5,500 BC. We also know that she belonged to the mitochondrial haplogroup U5A2D. Now, before this year, she was considered to be the oldest sample, the oldest person that had this blonde hair allele in ancient Sweden.
Okay.
However, a new paper that was published just a few months ago seems to have found an even older sample.
Wow, we're going even further back. I love that he seems to be someone who puts a lot of research. How often does he post? Because this looks like a channel that puts a lot of time into the preparation. Let me see. 2 weeks, 1 month. Yeah, like 4 times a month. Makes sense. Absolutely. You have to review the studies. You have to read them. You have to study them. You have to understand them. And then decide to put together the information, write the script. 100%.
From the same general region though. It was published in PNAS, and the study analysed 348 ancient genomes from across Eurasia, describing how skin, eye and hair colour evolved over the past 45,000 years. And they found that a hunter-gatherer from ancient Sweden who lived approximately 12,000 years ago, called Neo27, was predicted to have blue eyes, blonde hair and light skin.
12,000 years ago, blue eyes, blonde hair and light skin already. That's insane.
It means that blonde hair alleles were already present in Scandinavia thousands of years before Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry arrived, beginning around 10,000 years ago or so. Now, the most likely explanation for this is a very ancient Eurasian gene flow flowing into ancient Scandinavia from the east, with later waves of Eastern hunter-gatherers bringing far more blonde hair alleles with them. So the point being is that this trait in Sweden has a very long history, and it was gene flow from the east that brought this trait into both Scandinavia and Eastern Europe.
Gene flow from the east, okay.
And if we turn back to this list of the countries today with the highest rates of blonde hair, we can see this genetic legacy of Eastern migrations. You can see that Western European countries like Spain and Portugal don't have high frequencies of this trait, who are influenced more by
neither us in the south
by Western hunter-gatherers. Yet European populations to the east and to the north have much higher levels.
Yeah, like Poland.
The likes of Finland, Scandinavia, and the Baltic states like Estonia are very high.
Yeah.
And this is mainly due to Eastern admixture, with Finnish people also having a Siberian ancestral component. And
yeah, I mean, Finnish is always kind of special. Even linguistically, I think they're not even related. Am I incorrect about that? But that's what I kind of remembered.
their DNA.
This is great stuff,
Something
yeah.
I note in a previous video. I should also note as well that Iceland was largely settled by the Vikings.
Yeah.
Now we know had high levels of blonde hair as well, probably similar to Scandinavian levels today.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool that the blonde hair map of Europe still reflects this arrival of Eastern ancestry
Very interesting, yeah.
thousands and potentially over 10,000 years ago.
That's insane.
Now, later events compounded this with the Yamnaya waves of migration from the Pontic-Caspian steppe carrying some of these genes into Europe. As although they tended to have darker hair expressed, as this reconstruction shows, they did carry some blonde hair genes. This is because around half their ancestry
I can respect the mustache. I do respect the mustache. Like, this guy looks like someone he can make you some kind of killer steak. I just know it.
came from Eastern hunter-gatherers. Another half came from a people related to hunter-gatherers from the Caucasus.
Okay.
Now, connected people to the Yamnaya often spread this steppe ancestry, such as the battle axe culture in Scandinavia.
Battle axe culture.
So, in other words,
What a
the
name.
genetic capacity for blonde hair was brought into Europe by waves of migrations from the east.
Okay.
Now, if you're enjoying this video, please
Yep.
consider subscribing. And if you would like access to member-only videos, including one on Viking DNA differences, please check out the top link in the video description below.
Totally.
Thank you, and now on with the video. Yet in hunter-gatherer
I think he has a Patreon because he mentioned it. But I'll put it in the description anyways once this gets edited into a video.
times, or during the Bronze Age as well, blonde hair wasn't as common as it is in many parts of the world today, like Sweden.
Okay.
So what other factors drove the evolution of blonde hair?
Okay.
Well, sexual attractiveness was probably a major selection driver.
You see, big shot research now saying the same thing that I said.
We know that even today, blonde hair is generally the most common colour for women to dye their hair. And some have argued that in post-Ice Age Europe, there was intense competition for mates in sparsely populated tundra environments. Now, a really interesting paper was published in 2006 in Evolution in Human Behaviour by the anthropologist Peter Frost.
Okay.
They looked at the diversity of European hair and eye colour. Frost argued that in parts of post-Ice Age Europe, high male mortality in hunting could have left more women than men unmated at any one time.
Really?
This could have meant that women with novel, attention-catching features, such as blonde hair, had a better chance of attracting a mate. Yet sexual attractiveness isn't the only factor. Climate is likely another. Now, we know that blonde hair is more common in people with fair skin,
Yes.
which in turn is more efficient at making vitamin D from sunlight.
Yeah.
This is well suited to the northern climes of Scandinavia and the Nordic world in general, of course.
I appreciate that he was precise in the wording here when he said blonde hair is more common with people with light skin. Absolutely. But the reason why I appreciate the precision is because it does sometimes happen with people with black skin. There are some Africans that have blue eyes. It happens. It's a lot rarer. And then he also mentioned was it an Indonesian at first that he showed that they have a different type genetically of that other type of blonde hair? And I think it does happen sometimes in African populations too. It's just that it's a lot less likely to happen than it is with people of Nordic descent or Eastern descent in that case.
There could also be a founder effect at play as well. A small initial population carrying blonde hair alleles can, through genetic drift and expansion, become nearly an entire nation of blondes over time.
Yeah, particularly if it's the upper class and then they start having children and more children because they can afford it. So I guess that would also have to do with it.
So a combination of these factors is likely at play. Now, the Viking Age could provide another reason why Sweden has such high levels of blonde hair compared to Norway and Denmark. We know that during the Viking Age, Sweden experienced gene flow from the Baltic states.
Okay.
This is a region with pretty high levels of blonde hair, as we
So blonde with blonde.
noted earlier. Norway, on the other hand, had gene flow from mainly Britain and Ireland, and Denmark saw ancestry from as far afield as southern Europe. And we know that Danes had slightly higher levels of black hair during the Viking Age than today, something a 2020 study found. Therefore, Sweden never had a major dilution event during this time. So the prevalence of blonde hair in Sweden is probably the result of various factors.
Yeah.
But this influx of Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry was a massive one.
I never thought of that is fascinating.
which was likely compounded by numerous variables over time. But what do you think? Please let me know in the comments below, and if you...
Well, what do I think doesn't really matter if I haven't looked at the genomic data. As I say, I can describe and can comment on a few things when I see connections with ancient Rome, but I will have a look at the papers because this is interesting.
You have blonde hair. Now, what does your eye colour say about your ancestry? Well, to find out, please click here.
Cool.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and hit the bell, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
He's
and
really...
I'll see you next time.
He's actually really good at internal networking of his other work. Like, his placement for the membership was excellent. Even now, the way he's like, oh, click this one. You can see that these are very handcrafted. Very cool. Very cool video. I actually liked it. I think I'm going to keep watching the channel. He's good. I like how professional he is. So we're going to subscribe to the channel, and then we can keep checking out the information he has to offer, because I mean, it was a 9 minutes video, but very packed with information.